That's the HMCS David. It was a CP liner during the pre-war. It was converted to a troop ship, and there's circuits waiting for the water to move farther up the beach to cover more of the landmines. There are 14,000 mines in the water and inland at Juno Beach for the Canadians, 15,000 Canadians to face as they come ashore. So they're waiting for the water, the tide to roll in a little farther so that the ships, the landing craft, can move in. Now, the image we have of D-Day is either Cornelius Ryan's and then David, oh gosh, Selznick. I think Selznick, no. Anyway, the longest day with all the cameo stars and, you know, John Wayne was in it. John Wayne. Every British actor alive was in it who was of any consequence. Anyway, that's the we have. The image of D-Day is The Longest Day movie or Saving Private Ryan, right? Now, Saving Private Ryan was based on an interesting premise. The premise was that at a certain point in the war, the Americans decided that they didn't want to have members of the same family in the same regiment or units. It was based on an incident in the Pacific where 5 members of the same family, the Sullivan brothers, were killed on a U.S. naval vessel. It was euphemistically referred to as the Sullivan Law. No such law. What happened was they determined that the United States determined that if a member of a family were killed, they would attempt to retrieve other members of the family so that a family wouldn't sustain any more losses than the one. That was the premise behind Saving Private Ryan. These guys went in to get Private Ryan, whose brother had been killed in some other theater of war, and get him out. In Canada, the system was the other way around. If you were in the Army, you could contact and claim a relative into your regiment. This is Fred Bernard. He joined the Queen's Own Rifles from East York. His buddy, Gordie Arthurs, down the street, was in the same regiment. Later, Fred's brother Don, younger, joins the Queen's Own Rifles. Fred claims him into the Queen's Own. And in fact, all 3 are on the same landing craft on June the 6th at 8 o'clock in the morning when the Queen's Own go in. And I'll read you a short excerpt of what happened. When the front ramp dropped on the LCA Landing Craft Artillery Army, containing No. 12 platoon from B Company, Corporal Fred Bernard was about halfway back. Joining him in the leap into waist-deep water in front of Bernier-sur-Mer were his younger brother, Rifleman Donald Bernard, and his childhood friend, Rifleman Gord Arthur. The 3 had grown up together on the same street in East End, Toronto. But this was not Sutherland Avenue in East York. Quote, "As we were going down the ramp," Fred Bernard said, "I yelled to my brother, 'Give him hell!' And the next thing I know, I'm in 4 feet of water," close quote. Immediately in front of him, and his only concern in those first few moments, was the maze of obstacles that had been exposed by the low tide. Fred Bernard quickly realized that the mines on the hedgehogs, the crisscrossed bars that were in the water, were the source of the explosions around them. There seemed to be continuous detonations as several of the Queen's Own landing craft triggered the mines. As he reached dry beach, he came across one of the youngest men in his platoon, a 19-year-old whose stomach had been cut open by shrapnel. Ahead of Fred Bernard, he saw his chum, Gordon Arthur. He'd made some cover on the shoreline, and he began to go to him. Quote, "And then I saw my brother Don, lying on his back as if he was asleep. There was just a black hole in his uniform right in the middle of his chest. No blood. He must have died instantly." The most important order on D-Day that every man who was involved had to adhere to was, you stop for nothing. You keep going. And so Fred, who had claimed his brother Don into the regiment, could not even stop long enough to bring his brother's body ashore to be buried later. He had to be left for somebody else.